We're pleased to be joined by Greg Flynn, the chief of the West Bloomfield Fire Department, to close out today's show as we continue through the COVID-19 pandemic and continue to get people encouraged to vaccinate themselves against COVID-19. Something else that always comes into play right around this time of the year and as we head into the colder months of the year is also the flu, something that does vary itself each and every year, and people need to get vaccinated for that as well. And the fire department coming up later on in September will be joined by one local organization to hold a flu vaccine drive-through clinic. We're pleased to be joined by Greg Flynn to talk about that clinic. Chief, thanks for being with us today.
Tyler, good morning.
Appreciate having you on. So tell us a little bit about when this clinic's going to be, where it's going to be located, and what people can expect.
Yeah, the clinic's going to be September 25th, and we'll hold that clinic at Fire Station number 1 at 4601 Orchard Lake Road. That's the fire station right in front of the high school. And what's really convenient about these clinics that we've done in the past with Alana's foundation, with Alana being a West Bloomfield resident that is a young girl, and her story all on the Alana's Foundation website, but becoming sick and that illness ultimately leading to Alana's passing. Her family really rallied around that and trying to make the best of it, created the Alana's Foundation and is getting vaccines into kids' arms to prevent the spread of the seasonal flu. And we've partnered with them at our open houses. And now we've kind of taken it to the next step where we're bringing those drive-through clinics where people can register before coming to the clinic. And then they'll just drive right in. They'll have all their information. They don't have to get out of the vehicle necessarily, administer the vaccine, and they go right out the other side and they're on their way. So it really is a convenient model, and we get really good feedback about it.
We're joined by Chief Greg Flynn of the West Bloomfield Fire Department today on the MegaCast, talking about an upcoming clinic Saturday, September 25th at the West Bloomfield Fire Department. They'll be hosting a drive-through flu vaccine clinic in partnership with Alana's Foundation. And Chief, is this available to just those residents in West Bloomfield and in the Tri-Cities who are served by your department, or is this open to the general community as well?
Really, Alana's Foundation is applied to everybody in the area. They really just are focused on making sure those that want the vaccine for the flu have access to it. So don't believe that there's any kind of zip code checking or anything like that, but just being pre-registered. And if you went to our Facebook page for the West Bloomfield Fire Department, you'd see that in one of our more recent posts. And I think there's even a little QR code that you can shoot on your phone. It'll take you right to the registration page and get you going.
So why the drive-through clinic for this year? Because we've seen in the past, Alana's Foundation, of course, you mentioned that they are commonly at the fire department's open house events, but has the COVID-19 vaccination drives that we've seen, the drive-throughs at your fire departments through Oakland County, has that kind of inspired this drive-through? What was really the onset of this being the method that your department and Alana's Foundation went with for this vaccine clinic?
Well, there's some real advantages to it, Tyler, when we look at things like mobility issues. If somebody has to park their car and then walk across the parking lot and it's raining out or it's cold out or it's windy out, any of those things, we eliminate a lot of that by just they can drive, come right into the security and safety of the fire station apparatus room. And that's a very controlled space. So then we can, the nurses there, the Visiting Nurses Association can go ahead and deliver the vaccine, and then they stay right in their car and they're right on their way out. And so the risk for slip and falls and trips and falls and just kind of some of those little things that can happen at a shot clinic are eliminated by putting those in place. And then with the pandemic going on, we're forcing that physical distancing that takes place because they remain in their car. And all of that just becomes easier to control. And, definitely fire stations across Southeast Michigan have been taking up this charge, and it's a good model. And it's still a good time of year to do that. Still warm enough where the apparatus room isn't getting too cold with the water and pipes and hoses that are in there. So September is just a great time to do that.
Who does Alana's Foundation encourage to go get this vaccine each year? Is it certain populations that they're saying are really important to get vaccinated against the seasonal flu, or is this something that they're encouraging everyone and their families to get as well?
Tyler, so many questions about vaccines right now, right?
Yeah.
So much debate about the efficacy of vaccines and that. I can tell you this, my parents have come to the fire open house ever since the Alana Foundation started administering the vaccine there, and that's where they got their flu vaccine every year. My parents are, well, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and I'm 47. So, my parents definitely in that age group, in that 80-year-old age group, that definitely is vulnerable, the susceptible populations to flu infection. And like all the vaccines, what we're trying to do is it's not preventing the transmission. What we're doing is preparing the body so that when the transmission takes place, that the symptoms and the disease, the illness is much, much less, if not even noticeable, because the body has such a quick immune response. So I think the answer to your question is everybody that is looking for the vaccine should come and get the vaccine for the flu. And if this date works for you, I know Alana's Foundation would love to fill every single appointment that they have scheduled.
We're joined by Greg Flynn. He is the chief of the West Bloomfield Fire Department with us on the MegaCast. The fire department partnering with Alana's Foundation on Saturday, September 25th at Fire Station 1 located on Orchard Lake Road between Lone Pine and between Lone Pine and Green Road in West Bloomfield. You can find more information on this and other Alana's Foundation vaccine clinics at alanasfoundation.org. And Chief, as we continue to talk about vaccinations, right now, more than ever, it's being encouraged for people to go get their vaccines as the Delta variant continues to take a toll on the state of Michigan and across the U.S., less severely necessarily in the state of Michigan than in many other places. But that being said, still the vast majority, almost all of Michigan counties are still in high or substantial transmission zones according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And as local hospital systems continue to have some trouble with COVID-19 because of the influx of patients, not necessarily in our local area, but in other places across Michigan and the U.S. Are you seeing in your department, is your department having an increase lately as this Delta variant has been traveling around, an increase in calls to bring people from their homes in West Bloomfield and in the Tri-Cities due to COVID-19?
Tyler, you remember well over a year ago when we all rallied around the hospitals and we drove around them and the lights and sirens, and we all said we're supporting those frontline workers and we're doing that. It's interesting now that we almost are becoming fatigued by the term increase, by the term crisis. We're numb to these words. And I'm not pointing the finger at everybody else. I too, it's like almost I feel bad saying we see an increase because it seems like how can everything just keep increasing? The reality of it is that, whether you say high, low, or whatever, if you get COVID, we're seeing many people that have that negative impact. So what does the many mean? Well, I think the statistics have been pretty clear from the onset of this that they said about 80% of the people won't require hospitalization. Fantastic. I don't know that that's changed a ton, but 20% of any population is still a large number of people. And so, yeah, we're seeing that trend upwards of infections and symptoms of infection showing up in more of our medical reports. Again, how much of a percent increase? I don't know that it's ever gone away, Tyler. I think it's continued to be with us, but now we're seeing people sicker than what they were for whatever those reasons are. That maybe that's beyond the scope of what you and I can talk about, but we know the hospital admission rates are a great thing to look at, and we know that they're up. And the thing that we got to keep in mind, Tyler, when we talk about this is when every bed is full with someone sick with COVID, that's one less bed for the stroke victim, for the diabetic victim, from the cardiac patient that needs a bed as well. So we all need to do our part to stay healthy, and doing our part, a big component of that is I'm vaccinated. I'm one of them, and I'm willing and ready to go get my booster when my turn comes up.
We're joined by Greg Flynn. He is the West Bloomfield Fire Department chief with us today on the Oakland County MegaCast. They have, of course, a vaccine clinic for influenza, for the seasonal flu, that will be on Saturday, September 25th at Fire Station 1, located on Orchard Lake Road in West Bloomfield, right next to West Bloomfield High School. Find more information on alanasfoundation.org, as that is in partnership with Alana's Foundation, a local nonprofit that is focused on getting people vaccinated and preventing the spread of the seasonal flu. And Chief Flynn, in recent weeks and over the last couple of months, we've seen a number of severe weather incidents in southeastern Michigan, all across the state. And while many areas southeast of us, particularly downriver, have been much more severely affected by these storms and their aftermath than necessarily our local area, that doesn't keep us immune from some of the negative outcomes of these storms, such as downed power lines. Even just across the street from us during one of those storms in late June, we had a power line that was down across the street that was causing a fire to go in and out on one of the trees by one of the residences. How did West Bloomfield and the Tri-Cities fare during those storms? What were some common issues that maybe popped up in regards to flooding or to downed power lines that would be important for our audience to know more information about, to keep themselves safe in those situations?
Well, you're still seeing some of the aftermath from some of those storms with trees that were blown down that are still waiting on a safety path to be cleared, or somebody that may still have tree debris in their backyard. And it's not because of a lack of trying. It's not because of a lack of willingness to get that fixed. Really, it comes down to resources and people to physically go out and do the work. But I think you hit it well for what our area sees, and that is the down power and utility lines. I'm including the cable and other the lines that are the lower, usually those thicker cables that you see. Sometimes even in some areas you feel like you could reach up and touch them. Those are usually not electricity carrying, or they're carrying a signal, phone lines, cable lines, things like that. But what the tricky thing is with those, Tyler, is that if there's a downed power line that comes down onto those lines, they can become energized. So we really just encourage everybody to stay away from all of them, that no power line is safe to approach. We call those in. You can call the fire department. We put those into a list. When we hit those big storms, Tyler, we go into what's called storm mode. Pretty creative name, huh?
Yes.
What we do is dispatch starts logging what we call lower priority runs, which is what we consider a down power line. Lower priority does not infer no priority. We would just put, again, smoke in a building, fire, a medical emergency would be above that. And we log those, and we will get to each and every one of those that's called in. When we arrive, we assess the situation, tape it off with our yellow caution tape, and then we call those into an access number that we have at the FD through our partners in dispatch to get those all on a priority list for DTE to get out here. But, you talked, I just want to jump in real quickly too on that water issue. You talked about some flooding. We're very fortunate in West Bloomfield with all the areas that we have for water to go to with all of our lakes, that flooding routinely is not an issue for us. We do have some low-lying areas, over there by the Jewish Community Center off of Drake. There's a low area there. That road can sometimes flood. But a lot of this comes down to drainage issues. And we need to take care of our storm drain, our storm water transportation system, if you will, that routes this water to these collection sites. They become overgrown with invasive species and cattails and phragmite and debris. And we have some different strategies that we'll use to clear those. When I say we, I just mean government in general, not the fire department per se. But it's important to maintain those drains, because when they do come clogged with vegetation and other things, the water will collect in areas that we don't want it. And that's why the rest of there's a whole team in the township that has their eye on that and is maintaining those.
We're joined by Greg Flynn, West Bloomfield Fire Department Chief, also the Chief of the Tri-City Fire Department in Kegel Harbor, Orchard Lake, and Sylvan Lake, with us today on the MegaCast. Chief, just another couple of minutes before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else at this moment in time that's important for our audience to know as they're going forward?
Well, we would encourage everyone to have a safe holiday weekend. That's for sure. The longer weekends, we know that as we talk about water, that one of the great things about living in West Bloomfield are all of our lakes that we enjoy. We encourage people to do their safety checks on their boats, make sure that there are enough flotation devices on the boat. Make sure if you're going out on the water and you're out on a kayak or a canoe or one of those small sailing vessels, little sunfish kind of thing, again, that you have a flotation device. Even if you're a great swimmer and comfortable in the water, we really want to make sure we get through the entire water season without any undue accidents or injuries out there. So prevention is the key for that. And also, I'd like to just put on everyone's radar, Tyler, and know that our friends at Civic Center TV, we always welcome you at this event too, is on October 3rd, Sunday, October 3rd, is going to be our fire open house at Fire Station 1, same place as the flu clinic that we were just talking about, from noon to 3 on Sunday, October 3rd. Parking at the high school. We'll again have our friends from Parks and Recreation with a shuttle for those that need it, or it's a nice walk past the tennis courts over to the fire station. And Tyler, just keep in mind, the fire department will be monitoring the pandemic and what our numbers are like, but we feel confident that with it being an outdoor event, we can safely execute that in a way that will be fun for everyone to enjoy. Fire prevention doesn't go away just because there's a pandemic. And so we want to keep that messaging going. And it's through venues like this and opportunities that you provide us, Tyler, to continue to get those messages out. So we do appreciate that from you and your entire team.
We appreciate your time. Thanks, Chief.
Okay.